Welcome back to Football Daily, where today, you guessed it, we're talking about Chelsea. Right, you guys at home seem to enjoy this strand, don't you? Stay or go. We've done one with Arsenal, Tottenham, Newcastle, Manchester United, and today we're doing one with the Blues because of headlines like this. If you don't know how this works by now, it's very simple. I've got keep, sell, loan and contract exit as potential categories. I've got the full Chelsea first team as well as returning loans. Just a note, I'm not going to be including the likes of Levi Colwill, Ian Maatson here because Chelsea's squad is about 200 players and will be here all day. So it's the first team plus returning loanees. Okay? I think we may as well start with the goalkeepers, right? And Edouard Mendy, definitely I'm going to want to keep him. He's only 30 years old. He's under contract until 2025. There's absolutely no need to do anything other than keep him at the club. Whereas Kepa, who has the same length contract until 2025, he's only 27 years old, is a mystery. What do you do about a problem like Kepa? Because he has had a couple of influential moments, both positively and negatively at the club. He signed that huge contract for a whopping £70+ million, wasn't it? And I do think if you can find a buyer for him this summer, you sell him. It's a little bit harsh, but surely there's going to be a taker on the market back in Spain. I think you're going to be getting pennies on the dollar of what you paid for him, obviously. But you have got Gabriel Slolina coming through the door, or seemingly anyway. I don't know much about him. He's only 18. MLS fans, please do let me know what you've heard about this lad in the comments below, because everything I've read, he seems like an unbelievable talent. And then Bettinelli will just keep. Third choice goalkeeper, right? I just think if you can get a fee for Kepa, any fee, it's probably time. Moving into the defence, we'll start with the left-backs, where Marcos Alonso wants to go. He's pushing for that move to Barcelona, isn't he? He's still got 1 year left on his contract, and he did start 25 Premier League games last season in the absence of Ben Chilwell. Look, if he wants to go, sell him. Because I don't think it's a huge downgrade to go to Emerson, who's obviously been on loan at Lyon. Chelsea tried to get him back in January. They couldn't get him back. He's only going to be a backup because Ben Chilwell is back and he's fit now. So if Marcos Alonso wants to go and you can get a fee from Barcelona, who, are trying to sign everyone when they can literally sign nobody, do it. I think keep Emerson as the backup, sell Marcos Alonso because his head's already gone. Next up, we've got Azpilicueta. Now, this is an interesting one because his contract should have been up this summer, but maybe he's triggered a contract extension. It's very unclear. I tried to do as much research as I could into this one. Some people are saying that he has triggered the contract extension because of a number of appearances. Others are saying there's a verbal agreement to let him leave this summer despite having that contract triggered. I don't know. It's all very, very confusing. But if I'm Thomas Tuchel, I'm doing all I can to keep Azpi at the club and not let him join Barcelona. I think he's an incredibly influential figure in the dressing room. I still think he offers high quality central defensive and fullback cover. I would be doing all I can not to let him leave. Over 2,000 minutes last season, he's an influential figure. Keep him. If you can, keep him. We don't need to hang around with Reece James and Ben Chilwell, do we? Because they're the starting fullbacks, nailed on, some of the best fullbacks in the league. Reece James in particular, incredible talent, so they're obviously being kept. Two of these centre-backs, obviously they've gone now, so we can put them in the contract exit section, can't we? In Rudiger and Christensen, two absolute hammer blows to the club, in my opinion, especially given over the last 2 summers, they've lost Mark Guéhi and they've lost Tomori. To lose Tomori, Guéhi, Rudiger and Christensen in the space of 2.5 years is nothing short of a disaster. And what it means is there's very few centre-backs left at the club. It's a real problem for Chelsea, this, a real problem. It's made even more of a problem by the fact Thomas Tuchel wants to play at 3 at the back. Because if he plays at 3 at the back, the cover is literally not there. It's non-existent. Thiago Silva, obviously going to be kept. Yes, he's old now, but it doesn't matter. Still the best centre-back at the club. I mean, Rudiger potentially up there as well, but this guy is aging like a fine wine. Ethan Ampadu, on the other hand, obviously he's been on loan at Venezia, hasn't he? Oh, he's under contract until 2024. He's 21, so we've got time on our hands, and he did nearly appear 30 times in Serie A last year for Venezia. Because there's no defenders, you almost have to keep him, but I think I would try and loan Ampadu yet again, maybe to a Premier League side this year, but it's getting to the stage where they might have to keep some of these players just because the numbers aren't there. Obviously, they're going to try and sign centre-backs, and if they do get centre-backs through the door, which I'm sure they will, players like Ampadu can be let go on loan. Malang Sarr's another prime example. Like, Malang Sarr, for me, needs to go out on loan. He's under contract to 2025. He's still only 23. Limited appearances this season. Only 8 Premier League apps. But, like, if you let him go out on loan, you've only got Chalobah and Silva as centre-backs at the club before you sign players, which cannot happen. So, like, Malang Sarr has to be kept just because you have to have depth. Otherwise, same as like Chalobah, I think would be kept anyway because he's really, really exciting. But if you don't have Sarr and you want to play 3 at the back, you haven't even got the numbers to do it. Like, Azpi can just about fit in there, but he might be off as well. So Sarr's going to have to be kept, despite the fact I want to loan him. Mason Mount, obviously going to be in the keep files for me. Outstanding creator. Definitely one for the future of Chelsea. A couple of these players that are coming up, though, I'm not sure about. 2 of those are Kante and Georginio, who are both out of contract in 2023. They're 30 years old and 31 years old, respectively. Put up a similar amount of appearances last year. I think it was 29 and 26. Kante, in particular, has injury problems. I think it was 5 separate injuries, including coronavirus, across the course of the season. Just starting to pull at those legs a little bit. They've made him such a magical player over the last few years. His underlying numbers just starting to collapse a little bit. Still a high-quality player, but I feel like age is catching up with Kante a little bit. Nevertheless, I think you've got to keep him. I think he's still an ace in the hole for Chelsea. Whereas Jorginho, look, if Chelsea got a £30 million offer for Jorginho with 1 year left on his contract, I would be selling him. Do I think that's going to happen? No. Therefore, I'm going to keep him. But with the right offer, I would sell Jorginho. I want to make that very clear. Mateo Kovacic obviously is going to be kept. I think he's one of the highest grade central midfielders in the Premier League, although he did only start 16 times in the league last season for Chelsea, which is something that really needs to be rectified. He's got a contract until 2024, so we're absolutely fine to keep him. But we've got to get him on the pitch if you're Chelsea. You've got to get him on the pitch quicker and for more prolonged periods of time. Next up, we've got Ruben Loftus-Cheek. This is where it starts to get difficult for me, and this is where I think you have to be quite brutal if you're Chelsea. I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I will be looking to sell. Look, he's offered good cover for the Blues in a multitude of positions across the last season, but only 13 starts in the league, 11 substitute appearances, 39 appearances across all competitions. However, I think there's a returning player on loan that can do that job, can play in a myriad of midfield roles, and that's Conor Gallagher, who obviously I'm going to be putting in the keep section right now. He had an amazing season at Crystal Palace, 33 appearances, I think it was 11 goal contributions, although in 2022, second half of the season, I think only the 2 goals. So fell off a little bit, but nevertheless, absolutely keeping Conor Gallagher. And because I'm keeping Conor Gallagher, that's coming at the detriment of Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I still think Ruben Loftus-Cheek is a really good player and can offer a fair few Premier League clubs a good opportunity. But for me, for Chelsea, I think now is the time, with 2 years left on his contract, it's time to move on. Couple more players that I would definitely move on then. Ross Barkley, he's got 1 year left on his contract. I just don't think it's there for him. 1 start in the Premier League last season under Thomas Tuchel. Again, maybe a Premier League side takes him. If not, definitely a high-end Championship side. Danny Drinkwater has obviously left on a contract exit. Kennedy, aka Mr. Loan, is up next. Finally, let's not loan him. Let's create Mr. Sell, because he's had, 5 seasons out on loan now. Obviously, that's not worked. He's still got time on his contract. 1 more year left. This is the last opportunity to get any sort of fee. If you can get even a couple of million, it's all gravy. Billy Gilmour, 21 years old. Obviously, he was on loan at Norwich last season, and Norwich were absolutely horrendous, and he had a really bad time of it down there, didn't he? I remember him being booed at times by the Norwich fans. I think it's another loan for Billy Gilmour. Do you know where I'd like to see Billy Gilmour go? Everton. I think link back up with Frank Lampard, who got the best of Billy Gilmour. And we've seen Frank Lampard able to improve loaned players. We saw him do a really good job with Mason Mount and Tomori at Derby County. And I think he could do the same with Billy Gilmour at Everton. And Everton need midfielders as well. So feels like a nice fit to loan Billy Gilmour to Everton. Bakayoko is going in my sell category. That's just not worked, has it? Ever since he arrived from Monaco. Could you try and ship him back to Monaco? Could that be done after they lost Aurelien Tchouameni? Probably not, but AC Milan don't want him. Don't think they hit the requirements for the obligation to be triggered. It looks like he's returning. If you can't get him to like Milan or somewhere in Italy, maybe in France, I'm not too sure, but try and get a small fee. All right, here we are, the forward options. This was the trickiest area when I was doing my research. I have to say, I even asked you guys at home on Twitter to get involved and start sending your suggestions. And Chelsea fans are just so split. They're so split. We may as well get out some of the players that definitely are going to go. So Michy Batshuayi got 1 year left in his contract. He's had an alright time of it actually out in Turkey, but sell him. Now the next 3 names on this list I would say were split pretty much evenly. People wanted one sold, the other sold, the other sold for differing reasons between Werner, Ziyech and Pulisic. My personal opinion is I would be keeping Timo Werner. Still under contract till 2025. He's only 26 years old. 6 goals in the Champions League this season, only 5 in the Premier League. More goals in the Champions League than the Premier League last season. But he's really well liked in the dressing room, a good character, and although he doesn't play every minute of every game, never kicks up a fuss, never causes problems, and I do think Chelsea have to retain some depth in the forward areas, especially someone who can play through the middle. So that's the reason I'm keeping Timo Werner. That leaves me choosing either between or both of Ziyech and Pulisic to leave. And I think time to sell Hakim Ziyech at 29 years of age. He's under contract until 2025. Only 14 starts in the Premier League last season and still relatively creative. But the reason I'm selling him is because I want to keep Christian Pulisic at the club. And here's the reason I want to keep Christian Pulisic at the club. His underlying numbers are still really solid, particularly his defensive output, which is something Thomas Tuchel prides himself on at Chelsea. So I think this area of his game is a reason to keep Christian Pulisic when there's a lot of flair talent going forward in Chelsea's forward areas. Christian Pulisic can work like a dog off the ball. He has been hit badly by injuries. He was hit really badly by COVID as well. So I would give him one more season at Chelsea to see if we can get the Christian Pulisic we saw at Borussia Dortmund back. He's still only 23. I'll give him one more season and I would sell Ziyech. Likewise, I would be keeping Callum Hudson-Odoi at the club. He's only 21 still and his contract is a little bit shorter than the rest on 2024 terms. And only 11 Premier League starts last season. But again, I think I see a lot of promise in these underlying numbers. A lot of promise. And this is where Christian Pulisic thrives. But this is where, creatively, Callum Hudson-Odoi thrives. And for a 21-year-old to be putting underlying numbers like this up, I want to see more of him on the pitch. Just not got on the pitch nearly enough. I would be tempted to loan Hudson-Odoi. But the forward areas coming, there's a player that I think needs to be sold. So I'm keeping Callum Hudson-Odoi. Kai Havertz is a nailed-on keep for me. I think he's growing slowly into this Chelsea shirt. I think he is a sensational footballer. On the ball, works hard off it, scores big goals in big moments. Only 11 goal contributions last season in the Premier League, but only 22 starts as well. And I think with one of these 2 players leaving, opportunities might... Interestingly, one of the 2 is Armando Broja, isn't it? Under contract until 2026 and he's still only 20. Ideally, I would like to loan Armando again. It was only 6 Premier League goals last season. I know a lot of people think he had a sensational season at Southampton and it was definitely a positive loan experience. But only 6 Premier League goals, only 3 in 2022, so an even split across the season. Not huge, but he was impressive. He was impressive. Especially against the eye test. Whenever you watched Armando Broja, you immediately knew what you were going to get from him. So I'm tempted to keep him because there's a bit of a dearth of strikers at Chelsea. I think I would keep Broja at Chelsea up until the last week of the season. And if I managed to get another striker through the door, I would then drop him into this loan category and find a last-minute club, because there's always clubs scratching around towards the end of the window that need a striker. Do Brighton still need a striker come the end of the window? And can we get Broja there? It might well work. Either way, that leaves us with just one name, Romelu Lukaku. And what do we do about him? Because he's come through the door for 100 million euros and it's not worked. He's pushing firmly for a move back to Italy. He's been pushing for a move back to Italy for about the last 7 months. Let's not forget that interview he did for Sky Italia as well. So cringy. But it's a shame because he is actually... He's a good goal scorer, man. It's just not fitted at Chelsea, and that's partly his fault, of course, but it's also partly the club's fault. They should have had a plan of how they're going to deploy Romelu Lukaku before they signed him for 100 mil. It's a 50-50 split of responsibility, in my opinion, that this move has failed. So obviously, that has to be a sell. It has to be a sell. It's going to end up being a loan. It is going to end up being a loan because Inter Milan cannot afford to buy him, but it had to be a sell. This, if it goes back as a loan move at the proposed €5 million figure, is the worst transfer in football history, bar none. Chelsea have done €95 million, €100 million on a one-season loan to win nothing and have a player score 8 goals. It's by far the worst transfer in football history. All of the ones before have at least stayed for multiple seasons, contributed in some way, even if it's minor. It's been a disaster. And if it's a loan back at €5 million, it's a disaster. So, got to get some sort of fee for him, which they're not going to be able to do. Alright, that was my list of Chelsea stay or go. Blues fans, let me know in the comments below. I'm sure there were some controversial selections in there. If you agreed with me, hit the like button. Hit subscribe whilst you're down there as well. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Auf Wiedersehen.